Good morning, all. This is Brian from Earth to Hearth. Here, just wanted to talk about some more native plant stuff today. So over here, just have a couple of native plants that we've got, and as we're here in the Pacific Northwest, and so some of the species we have here. So this is nodding onion. This is a native onion. Oh, hello, bumblebee. Look at you. Look at you. You're blessed today. As you can see, it's a native plant, and the native insects love it. So we're planting that. This one is sort of more of it likes wet prairies and other transitional zones where there's a lot more water, so you're not going to find it on some of the drier areas. So we're going to plant this in a couple of different spots on the property. Not yet. I'm going to wait till kind of the rains come. Also, I kind of just want to save it for seed. So we're going to get seed here, obviously, with this beautiful boy or girl. I don't know this species, and I don't know if they have a similar structure to honeybees. Probably not. They're probably a solitary species. But yeah, we'll let them pollinate it, and we'll get some seeds so I can grow more, and then I'll plant these. And these are also edible. They were gathered by native and local peoples. So bulbs similar to other wild onions. And here we have a Keystone species for the local prairies here, and that is our Gary oaks, also known as Oregon white oak. But yes, so on the species list, it's just one of those Keystone species. It provides a huge number of benefits to the environment. It hosts a large number of insects, and then from that, native plants and native animals we feed on those insects. Also provides food for some native both birds and squirrels, some native squirrels and other wildlife. So it's part of the prairie habitat. So we're going to be planting those a couple different spots. These are the initial ones I'm going to start with. I think I'm going to plant 2 of them just down this hillside on the edge of our property here, and then at the bottom of our field as well. And part of the plan is to incorporate that both into wildlife, just for native wildlife and that on our property, but also as long term as we're kind of adding livestock and creating that ecosystem that can provide food and shelter for our animals. So those acorns, long term, I was wanting to do pigs and sheep on our property, as well as other poultry like geese and turkeys. Those acorns can be part of that natural food forest that will feed them. And it means I have less money I have to spend on feed. But that's going to take time, so we're going to start planting a couple of these this year. I have some Douglas fir I need to remove. And if you're not aware, Douglas fir is one of those where in the native context here, it's obviously a natural tree, part of the nature system, but it is a very aggressive tree that tends to take over the prairie habitats, and it's part of the reason in Washington State our prairies are at about 3% of their original range. Now, they were kept in check mainly by fire, so these were both natural, and then obviously the native peoples here also, then once they figured that out, over thousands of years, they of course created and encouraged their own fires, which kept again and expanded as prairie habitat and sort of kept in check, which it's something I want to point out, because I think oftentimes people lose in the translation that wilderness was not without people. People are part of the natural environment. It's just we have in our modern times lost sight of that, and in many ways ignored the ways in which we have naturally maintained these environments and participated in them. And I think it's important to return to that and look at ways we can return to those ways in which we participated and were part of the natural environment and its total ecosystem and context. So I'm trying to do my part here. And over here, and this is a sort of just little barked bed around the house. Need a little weeding, but we have one of our other milkweeds. And then I don't remember which one that was. We probably just grabbed it. But here's a native milkweed. This is showy milkweed. Unfortunately, in our part of the state, we don't have a lot of native milkweeds, and part of that, so we don't have a lot of monarchs. They do visit the area, they're saying, but they're not really big. They're in this part of the state. There are in others parts, but for here, not as much. Apologies. But yeah, we're just kind of doing some more mix of natives and non-natives in this garden bed. And then in the back there, we have Douglas aster, which is another native flowering plant. It has purpley leaves. You can look it up, or purpley petals to its flower. Kind of daisy-like. So, you know, like I said, we have invasive daisies, so I'm kind of trying to get rid of them and replace them with other similar pretty plants, but that are native and have all the benefits of being a native plant. Being hardier and also providing both nectar and generally host plants for native insects, and then bringing in the birds and all the other benefits, because once you have the healthy insect populations, you can then have healthy bird and amphibian and reptilian populations along with healthy mammals. Yeah, so 1 second here, I'm gonna put this on my head and I'm gonna plant these guys. All right, gloves on. There we go. Yeah, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of compost. This is very thin here, so our water, blackberry up. Obviously, we got our main water main that comes in here, so there's not a whole lot of depth to the soil here, which is just what we got to work with because of the practicalities of having our water main. So these are going to have to deal with, unfortunately, a very narrow amount of soil. But we have compost, plenty of bark, and that's the one nice thing here is we can, since it's an artificial environment here, we can definitely do our best to encourage it. Don't have to worry too much about it being not perfect. Mount it up a little bit, and we're gonna I'm gonna have to go get more bark, but I'll add more bark here. That will give a little also more depth to the soil. Root up just fine. Yeah, so we'll have these here. We'll do more ground covers. We have a native violet. I think it's early violet. It's Dunica. I don't have it in front of me, so can't tell you exactly, but that's a native one. We'll probably do that and include and maybe some other native ground covers. There's Kinnikik or bearberry. That's another common one. As well as there is Twin Bells, which is just a good little flowering ground cover. I have it growing another part of the property, small little patch. But yeah. Here, I forget if it's any deeper back here or not. A little bit. That might just be a break in the fabric. Which I could, no, it is just deeper. I don't really want to, as much as it would probably be better, to rip at the fabric, because again, all our pipes are here. So it just means if we need to get access to our water, because our main runs right through here, we had to have work on it. I can just pull this up. Yes, might have to kill the plants, but we can always replant them, and that way also don't necessarily have to worry about any roots or anything damaging our pipes. Just the practicalities of life sometimes. Flowering. Compost in there. Nothing crazy. There's some handfuls here. Oh yeah, you are root bound. You are ready. When something's root bound like this, you can definitely break it up. Be gentle. Some plants do not like having their roots messed with heavily, so just, you know, check that out before you start aggressively doing it. Some plants with have sensitive taproots. So for example, we have pawpaws. They have a very sensitive taproot, so you do not want to, even if they are root bound, you really don't want to be messing around with it because you will very likely kill the plant. So ideally you don't want to leave them in pots too long because of that sensitive taproot. You know, if it grows. Oh. All right. So I'll probably get another milkweed to go to the right here. But yeah, so the aster is going to grow in. We'll probably plant, I'm thinking of camas. Camas is a native here. I have some bulbs they'll be getting here in the fall. It's I think it's in the iris. No, it's not in the iris family. Apologies. But it has a bulb similar to an onion. It was a very common food source, but it's an early sort of spring, late spring, early summer plant. Has blue, purple flowers. Quite pretty. I like them. They grow on the, you do see them occasionally on some ranches and on the side of the road here. Oh, I need to get another hose set up over here. All right. And again, you don't have to pull up everything that's non-native. If you know, it's absolutely fine to mix in plants that are ornamental. And just always, when you're doing ornamental plants, make sure they're non-invasive. You know, ideally aren't going to escape and become a problem to your native ecosystem. So just do a little research beforehand. These hydrangeas, they aren't going to go to seed or spread and basically take off. So these plants are just, they're just going to be here. We are going to be removing most of the plants over here in front of this window. So we're going to be replacing, again, a lot of this ground cover, not all of it. We're going to pull it back, remove this grass, these ornamental grasses, and plant some native grasses. I think we're going to do a mix of Romer's fescue. Romer's fescue is a native prairie grass. It's one of those really important ones. It's a host to a couple of important butterflies and insects. And so we'll do that. Just to, it won't grow anywhere near as big. And we might do some others. I'm going to experiment. Never really, you know, these are new grasses. There's a couple sedges. So might try growing them as well. And then in here, we're going to mix in camas, Western columbine. Let's see what else we're going to do. Western columbine and more of the violets as the ground cover. And then also chocolate lily. Again, that's another, it's a native lily here to the prairie. Can vary in color. It was also an edible. So there's a lot of really edible plants. And then those will all bloom at different times. They will have a decent amount of height. And then we'll also, I might plant a couple of taller things. There is, I believe, rose checker mallow is sort of, you think of like a smaller hollyhock. Pink blooms. It'll grow a little tall though, so we'll probably do it in the back with the grasses. And so that way it'll grow up and be a little taller on the background. And then we'll have some of the lower to high stuff up here in the front. And we'll probably keep this tree for now. It's fine. Same with the hydrangea. Well, they kind of frame the space. And as we've already done over here, we've incorporated huckleberry into our native landscape. So there were boxwoods here, got rid of them. These have not been shaped yet. We got them probably smaller. There's some bigger ones. That's the one thing. If you are going to use huckleberry, they are slow growing. So maybe get a larger one if you don't want to take the time. But we'll kind of keep pruning them. They will become more of a shrub over time. Obviously this year, just the hydrangeas are kind of falling over, especially from we had the heat and they kind of got stressed, so they're just a little loopy. But cut this back and we'll just kind of let this sort of bush out and become more of a landscape shrub. It's evergreen. So, and I really like, because also the new growth has a really nice red color to it, and then it kind of becomes darker over time and greener. And it's edible. You know, you got huckleberries, they're totally edible. The birds love them. And huckleberries are pretty widespread in the US, so there's a couple different varieties you could try growing. But yeah, so there's some native plants and ways to incorporate it into your landscape. Again, you don't have to go all in if you don't want to, especially maybe if you live in a spot where you got some Karen neighbors who really don't like, who see pretty much anything that doesn't come from the garden center as a weed. And you can kind of sneak some stuff in there that they don't really know and still have some of the more traditional things. But yeah, hope you all have a good day.